this might be the #1 dark horse pick for the Fossil Cup. Now, I've noticed a trend recently in that there aren't as many Mud Boys being played in the Fossil Cup as I previously had anticipated. Now, I would take a guess that this is probably because there's quite a few Ferrothorn, Poliwrath, and even Pelipper being played, as well as like Azumarill has a decent matchup against them. And then the targets that a Mud Boy would have would be like Registeel, which, while it is being played quite a lot, it's also getting beat by the counter users, which are on almost every single team. So with Mud Boys being relatively out of the picture, this one Pokemon has a clear, easy pathway to victory. Now, I noticed through YouTube recommendations and such that Jonkus was playing a lot of Magnezone recently, and so of course I decided to give it a try. Now, I will say Registeel is still the top picked and probably the best Steel type Pokemon. It still has just about the same coverage that Magnezone would, as it has Zap Cannon. And then also Focus Blast just deals heavy neutral and sometimes super effective damage to a lot of Pokemon in the Fossil Cup. Magnezone is just, let's say, a glass cannon version of Registeel. With all that being said, I am going to show you how to utilize Wild Charge and Magnezone here, even in its super frail state, to get wins in the Fossil Cup GBL. Getting right into the battles, we have Magnezone in the lead, Poliwrath on that switch position, and Jellicent in the back. Lantern could potentially be a little bit of a problem, but Dynamic Punch and Shadow Ball can take care of that, as well as, of course, the Wild Charge. And the Volt Switches do add up. So right off the bat, we have Cradily here. Cradily will deal all resisted damage to our Magnezone, as well as we have a super effective move to hit back with Mirror Shot. But look at how much damage that Grass Knot does. That is just about half right there. Not ideal. I will also note, don't pay too much attention to the timings of which I'm throwing these moves. They are not the most ideal timings here, but we're just throwing to start pressuring as fast as we can. Now remember how much damage that first Grass Knot did, so we are going to shield this up and see if it's possible to farm down. Actually, but switches out to to Poliwrath, so we're immediately throwing the Wild Charge and then switching so we can save a tiny bit of HP and hopefully some energy there. And then we have a Fighting type counter here in our Ghost type Jellicent. Even the Icy Wind, unfortunately, is kind of annoying, but it's fine for the matchup. We do lose CMP here, but we'll have that Shadow Ball coming. Double Icy Wind, so the Shadow Ball won't do that much damage, but hey, Poliwrath can't really hit us with anything that's not resisted, so eventually we will still end up winning this. So we're going to charge up even more. Before we throw this last, I don't want to take another Icy Wind, so we're going to throw another Shadow Ball to get that KO and just have a little bit of energy left over. In comes Registeel. I was expecting the Cradily to come back, but Registeel comes in. We switch to try and get a catch. Unfortunately, we don't get the catch, but he tries to farm us all the way down, and that allows us to get a Wild Charge, and look how much damage. Even with the full farm down, Registeel can't hold more than one charge move at a time, so a full farm down isn't the end of the world for us here, especially because we're going to win CMP with everything. We land the Wild Charge, and we have this counter damage to come through here. So we're going to let this go, because then Registeel won't really be able to get to more than at most one more charge move here. So we are going to farm all the way down. We're going to shield. We figure that Zap Cannon will deal way more damage than a Power Whip from Cradily. So we're going to farm all the way down there, and our opponent comes back with Cradily and top lefts. Getting into game number 2. Game plan is the same. Grab as many shields and or just doing lots of damage with Wild Charge. In comes Lantern. So Lantern, this is a matchup where in the back we don't particularly want this. So we're going to not throw right away. We're just going to get that extra Volt Switch in there. Our opponent didn't throw on great alignment there. He should be throwing between the Volt Switches, and he threw right at the beginning, meaning we get that free Volt Switch. We get this Wild Charge off, and now I am going to go for the Mirror Shot here. I don't know if it's actually going to do enough damage to kill, and it does barely anything, but we got the attack fall. It doesn't matter because we got the Volt Switch in, and the Mirror Shot does less damage anyway, so that it allows us to get to this Wild Charge with that not having as much energy being used for Mirror Shot. Skarmory gets the farm down, and I believe that's an Air Slash Skarmory, as opposed to the Steel Wing, which we're so used to seeing. But Jellicent's tanky enough that Brave Bird won't KO. We see Lucario come in, so we're actually going to switch out, keeping all that energy on Jellicent, shielding up because Lucario does a lot of damage. Unfortunately, it's just a Power-Up Punch, which we could have potentially let through, but I know Skarmory's thrown its energy, doesn't have enough left over. We get to land the Dynamic Punch and get to farm down. GG's trainer. Magnezone into Registeel. So this is an interesting one, as Registeel does have the option to throw a Focus Blast, which will just, I believe, entirely one-shot our Magnezone here. But Volt Switch, it adds up and we charge up pretty quickly, and so while we don't necessarily have the best matchup here in terms of pressure, we do have more pressure to other Pokemon later on. Now he shields, I wasn't expecting him to shield, and since we're planning on shielding Focus Blasts anyway, it doesn't particularly matter that we're losing all of this, all of our defense stats here with throwing back-to-back Wild Charges, because he's throwing Lock On, which just doesn't do a lot of damage. So that, by using those two shields there, that allows us to one-shot the Poliwrath. And we come back in with our own Poliwrath, we get the shield. I am going to throw because I don't want him to get to another Zapkin, and that wouldn't be good. We get the KO here. In comes Ferrothorn, and we actually just barely don't make it to that Dynamic Punch. And then Power Whip, that does way more damage than I thought it would. I did think we would live through one Power Whip with an almost full HP Poliwrath, but that was a lot of damage. So I'm a little worried here, but Jellicent is tanky, as we've seen before. It tanked a Brave Bird with no problem. Being able to get the Shadow Ball off, we go 1, we go 2, we go 3, and that is another GG. We're up against, this is another Registeel, so we know how this plays out. We're not worried about dropping our defense stat, but we are worried about the game not working. This continues on, and so I just top left out of this one because this game doesn't work. So we're just gonna take that loss. Thanks, Niantic. Going into the next battle, Magnezone into Ferrothorn. This is very similar to the Cradily, however, now both of us are just dealing resisted damage this whole time, whereas against Cradily, Mirrored Shot does at least give us that little bit of super effective damage. Power comes through, and again, that's so much damage for a resisted move. We are going to throw the Wild Charge, because guess what? It's the same thing. It does a lot of damage for a resisted move. We come in with Poliwrath, remembering that how much damage that last Ferrothorn did with its Power Whip, so we are going to shield and punch down. In comes Lantern, so we're going to be able to get our Dynamic Punch off. This is why in this cup you would run Dynamic Punch over Scald, because this matchup isn't nearly as bad. Lantern throws a move. We are at this point going to let it go because we still have our Magnezone here in the back. Now, unfortunately, our game runs into the exact same issue as the last one, in which it just stops working. So, unfortunately, we have to take this loss as well. However, we still grab a 3-2 for that set, which is kind of nice. So we're going to do 2 more battles just to round out the video, but we've seen this matchup before. This seems to be a fairly common matchup. It's rather volatile considering how resisted damage everyone's doing, and it just doesn't seem to matter that any of this damage is resisted. But Ferrothorn throws Thunder instead of Power Whip, which is actually better for us, because that means he's farther behind on energy. Whereas you can just throw the Power Whip. So we're going to go straight back to back because he threw Thunder. We're doubling up to throw back to back and then switching out, I believe, just as before. Nope, my bad, we didn't switch out. We're going to take those shields and we're going to let him throw this Power Whip, and we're going to use Counter now to farm down. We have a shield advantage, and he doesn't get to another Power Whip. So if he had thrown Power Whip instead of Thunder that first time, that probably would have been not nearly as good for us. We would have had gone down a shield. Getting our Dynamic Punch off, Poliwrath Mirror matchup, I switched to try and get a catch. Unfortunately, I don't get the catch. Now, our opponent has a Magnezone of his own. So since its Shadow Magnezone shields are up, it has to shield. So we're going to throw the Surf. And I'm realizing we actually will make this because we have 2 shields. We are going to make it to this next move. And Jellicent being able to throw Shadow Ball here to kill Magnezone still pressures a whole lot on this Poliwrath, so shielding there and getting another win. And our last battle here, we are into a Ludicolo. So this is actually a great spot to be. We're dealing neutral damage, he's dealing resisted damage. We go into our Jellicent here since that is their counter user. We could go into Poliwrath to win as well, but I would rather have Jellicent here just because it's taking far more resisted damage, as well as they decided to throw Mega Horn, so perhaps they don't have Drill Run. That would have been the better move. We are going to be throwing Surf, so we can just get a few more bits of energy there, and a little bit of lag, but that's fine. We get our Shadow Ball off, and we grab a shield with it too. So we are in a great spot now. Having that shield and having Magazone be able to farm up and just start wailing down on this Ludicolo. I believe that's a shiny Ludicolo too. But we've doubled up. We have our first charge move through. Second wild charge. Shields are down, so this is going to, I believe, KO, and that was neutral, by the way. Now, there is an Azumarill in the back. This matchup doesn't look super great for us, but we have 2 shields and Icy Wind. So we are going to start throwing Icy Winds just to start debuffing so that we can shield earlier on and take a lot less damage later in the game. So we're going to go for, I believe, 2 Icy Winds back to back here. And this is going to help so that we just, again, don't have to take nearly as much damage if, let's say, they get to 2 more play roughs, which I don't actually think they are going to. We're going to land 1 Dynamic Punch. It does a hefty chunk of damage, all things considered. Now, because our switch timer came up and we did get the Volt Switch through, we are putting up the shield so that the damage on Volt Switch goes through and grabs that KO. So, despite the game not working for 2 battles, we did end up being able to play out 5 battles, so technically we got the 5-0. So if you like this video, don't forget to drop a like for Magnezone, and if you've been having success with fun Pokemon in the Fossil Cup, let me know down in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you next time.